All right, so first off, I'm going to share my screen with you. We're going to do a quick market update. All right, so first off, we're going to just look at the dashboard with rapid stats. So right now, if you look at the past 3 days, we do see a 2.7% drop in the listing count. You can compare that with the past 60 days, it's pretty, similar to that. If you go back to 90 days, there is an increase. So what we are seeing is there's less properties coming onto the market. Currently, we have 11,206. For sold properties in the last 3 days, you're looking at 2,953. That's down 10%. And then you'll see past 60 days down 7%. So we've actually seen a large drop in the sold count recently.
Are you attributing that, Mike, primarily to the season that we're in now, just kind of starting to get down to the end of the year? And
you do see some of that with in regards to the season. We also, if you haven't paid attention, we just had an election, and a lot of people were on the sidelines. I'm sure your buyers have said, "I want to see what the election was." No one's paying attention to that. So what we're looking at is a lot of buyers are kind of concerned. Businesses, everyone's just kind of holding to see what they think will happen. The statistics don't really show there's major shifts in elections, but the people feel it in that process. And so,
do you have any stats compared to like last year, about this time?
So you can pull that up right here as well. So 365, but there's so many different aspects that go into that. I don't think you can really pin that down to just one item.
No.
So then going under contract, this is actually interesting. So if you look past 30 days, under contracts have actually risen. That's a good sign, even though rates dropped a little bit, they went back up. They're still pretty high, but the percentage has gone up for the number of contracts. So that's a good sign. I think if you can kind of imagine with the election season being passed, we should see more excitement from the buyers in the market. So utilize this moment to reach out to your sphere and see what they're looking at. Now, as for price point, if you're looking at the past 24 months, it's been pretty steady, a slight increase on average. But if people are saying, I'm waiting for the prices to drop, this is a great way to show them, hey guys, for all you saying, I'm waiting for prices to drop. Do you see that happening? No. And once interest rates drop, what do you think that's going to cause? This would be a good opportunity for you to market to your SOI. Lastly, supply and demand.
It should bring more buyers to the market, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it should bring more buyers, yeah.
More of a demand.
So as you can see right here, the demand is low and we have a higher supply. I would expect this to narrow down a little bit on both ends. One, you have election season, you'll see a little bit of a slowdown during the holidays, but that will start to pick up at the beginning of the year. People get more excited, fresh start, election, all those things will come into play. And if you see any drop in the interest rates, that'll have a huge effect. Any questions on the market? Okay, I'm gonna pass some time over to Linda. She's gonna talk about committees.
Hey everyone, so November 20th is committee sign day at the Salt Lake Board. And I would encourage all of you to go and sign up for a committee. There's a lot of different committees. They have a commercial committee, they have government affairs, they have the grievance committee, they have charity committee, which is one I'll be on next year. They have the education committee, which is a great one. You get a ton of CE and you get a lot of classes, and all the committees are really great, and we need agents, we need really good realtors to be a part of them. So it's 11 to 1 on November 20th. So please go out and join a committee.
Hey, if you guys join a committee, what that does, it gives you more credibility in the market too. If you're telling one of your clients and saying, hey, yes, I'm on the education committee, they're like, oh wow, so yeah, I help make sure that the agents know what they're doing in the market. They're going to give you a lot more credibility and saying, okay, this person's going above and beyond their peers, in the market.
And it's a good networking. You're gonna meet a lot of different agents that sometimes we don't see faces, and so it's a good way to network with people too.
So if they wanted to sign up, where do they do that?
So the Salt Lake Board, November 20th, 11 to 1.
They have to be in person?
I believe so.
Okay.
During COVID, they had it online, but I believe it's in person.
Okay.
Yeah, so all of the committees will have their tables out. You can go and visit with all of them. You can talk to them about what the committee does. Most of them meet once a month. And so you can just go and talk to everybody at all the committees and see which one is best for you. Okay.
All right, so now we're gonna go over to, anyone had not heard about our media studio? Who has not heard about it? Okay, so we have a podcast studio, where it's just about done, and it's just in the building outside right here. This is open to all of our agents to utilize to do video content, if you wanna do a podcast, any sorts of video, if you wanna take pictures. We have some bit different backdrops that you can utilize there. It does have some good soundproofing in there, so really what you wanna be able to look at is, are you utilizing video in your marketing? The statistics show that everything is going towards video for content. If you're seeing visibility like on social media, if you're on Facebook or Instagram, people wanna see movement. If you have a still image, like say on Instagram, for example, your chances of someone seeing that and looking at it for a period of time is very small compared to video. Video increases it anywhere from 70 to 80% of visibility. That's an increase in visibility. And people, do they choose you because you are a licensed realtor to sell their home? Why do they choose you? Well, I want some feedback from the,
Because I'm so good looking.
because you're so good looking, okay. So maybe a still picture might work good for you, but, well, why do people choose you?
Connection.
Connection?
Connection.
Referrals? Okay,
Experience.
experience,
What you're doing.
they see what you're doing. Okay. We're human beings, we're social beings, we want to have a connection with people. The people will choose you because they like you, they trust you, and then if you're competent and capable, that's an add-on, that's just like, okay, yeah, that's good. But they're choosing to work with you because they like who you are, your personality, that means they're connecting. So if you are not connecting with them online, and video is the best way to connect, it makes you more approachable, then you're missing out on a huge opportunity to build those relationships, which are in depth. Because if you haven't talked to a client, you sold them a house a year and a half ago, and you haven't talked to them since, but they've seen some pictures of you online, great. But if they see a video of you connecting, talking, sharing your feelings about something, then they can feel that connection. You should have roughly 30 to 35 touches with one person a year. So touches is connections, a way of having a relationship, to be able to maintain that relationship with that respective client. So if you don't want them to go and sell their house and just pick some random realtor, you need to have multiple touches. And they're strong ones. So that might be a phone call, that can be a text message, it can be a bunch of social media posts, it can be some video content, it might be at an open house or some events, like we just had some trunk or treats. It was a great way to bring out your sphere. A lot of those touches, you do them multiple times throughout the year, you will maintain those relationships, so when they think about, oh, I need to sell my home, who do I call? They don't have to question, they just automatically say, oh, I'm gonna call Cesar because I saw him at the trunk or treat. And what did you wear? I can't remember what you, wait,
I was a superhero from Mexico.
oh, yes, okay.
And so many people recognize
Oh,
that.
super cute.
Yeah, you're great.
And he was eating stuffed kettle corn, so, but people start to have those memories, they're gonna say, oh yeah, that's right, I saw Cesar. Or, I saw so-and-so and, yeah, had, a great night, we had food, we had all this stuff. Those are memories that will rekindle, when they think about Halloween, they're gonna think about you. Then they think about Christmas, they're gonna think about you. All those things you wanna be able to maintain, in working order, so make sure, that you're taking advantage of using this media studio. It's free to you, don't pay for it, don't worry about that. If you have any concerns about how to do media, we have trainings. Really, I guess I'm gonna give you an example here. Anyone seen a video of someone drawing a black line around an ant or a spider? Have you guys seen that? So they put a spider or an ant on a table and they'll draw this black line around that insect or arachnid. And what does it do? Have you guys seen this? The ant won't cross that line. Spider won't cross that line. They keep going, they go in a circle, trying to look back and forth at the ant, like the line, and they're trapped. And the funny thing though is, if they have an ant moving and they draw the line really quick, so the ant can't register, it crosses that line, then if you draw a circle around that ant, guess what happens? It can cross the line. So what we do psychologically is we set these barriers saying, I can't do this because I don't know how to do video. But if you just force yourself to just do one, it doesn't matter, it can't be perfect. If you wait for it to be perfect, it'll never happen. You just need to do it. My first video that I did for a listing was the cringiest thing you could see. My wife, we went back, looked at some of the videos, this is like a year ago. We went back and looked at the first video, she's like, that was horrible. Yeah, I was like, thank you. But the fact is that you have to be okay to make mistakes. If you make mistakes, then you grow. If you're too afraid to make mistakes, then you won't get past that. Video content is your key to be most successful and differentiate yourself in this market. So with that, Linda, we have a minute.
We are having an open house for the media building. It's gonna be next Tuesday on the 12th. We're doing a social media class beforehand from 10 to 12. And then we're gonna have the open house from noon to 1. Everybody can go in there. Josh can take some videos. We can show you how it works. It's gonna be sign up on the library, so you can sign up for your times. It's actually a really cool building, and I'm really excited for everybody to come and see it. We're gonna have our 2 lenders, Influence Lending and First Rate Home Mortgage, bring in Olive Garden, so we're gonna have quite a good lunch. And come in and have some fun and figure it out. I know that, like, I'm more in the age group that I don't like going to social media and video is not my thing, but you just have to force yourself. I'll force myself so you guys can force yourself with me, so we can all be awkward together. But come in and check it out. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
The class is a 2-hour core credit class, so we are bringing in a videographer to help with that. And so it's gonna be class and workshop. So we're gonna just walk you through a few things so you can say, okay, now I know how to do this video. And then if you ever choose to do a higher end video, you can hire the professionals. Then you take out a lot of the angst and you just sit down and talk about a certain topic. We just come up with a few items and we'll teach you. We'll also have some scripts available if you're trying to talk to buyers or share things to your podcast environment, or you're on YouTube or wherever you want to do that. You can use some scripts to help you run that process. So that's on the 12th.
On the 12th, next Tuesday, classes at 10 to 12. And then the open house is 12 to 1, or whenever it gets finished.
So we got a couple questions here. So we're thinking about connecting with clients. It means a lot of people to comment on their social media, even more than seeing content from you. They will appreciate your comments on their posts. Absolutely.
I agree.
Will there be other opportunities for studio training? Yes, it won't be just the 12th. There's some ongoing opportunities. This class will happen every month.
Yeah, we'll be incorporating it into our social media class that we have, which is a CE class. So we will be having ongoing training on it. If you can't make it on the 12th, then make sure that you sign up for the next one.
I'm sorry, what time does that all start again? Is it
The class is 10 to 12,
10 to 12, right?
and then the open house is noon to 1.
I think it's on the education calendar.
It is on the education calendar. Yeah,
And then you send out an email or flyer.
yeah. We send out an email. Amber will be sending out some more. So, okay. And then the next thing, so Christmas. It is November. Christmas is almost here.
Yes.
I know.
Every year we watch Elf. Fair movie. Yes.
So Christmas is almost here. So we are planning our Christmas party. It's going to be on December 18th. It's gonna be in the middle of the day. I think it might be like 10 to 12. I'm not quite sure. We'll be sending out emails and flyers and invites for it. It's gonna be a White Elephant gift Christmas party. It will be here. It's for the entire brokerage. And we are gonna have, I think it's gonna be a potluck, so everybody can just bring whatever breakfast item you want. Amber has it all written down in the flyer. So it's gonna be a white elephant, and wear your ugly sweater, just because I have a really great ugly sweater too that I wanna wear.
I've decided which one I'm gonna do, so.
Yeah.
Any guidelines on the white elephant?
Amber and I are still measuring. We're gonna work that out.
Not too risque.
Yeah. We'll be sending out more information as we're just in the beginning stages of planning it.
Okay.
So, and we are doing donations from here. We're gonna collect them all the way up until the 18th of December, till the day of the party. We're doing donations for the road home. So the road home encompasses all different kinds of problems of homelessness. There's families, men, women, battered women, teens, children. So we decided on that one. They're gonna need really everything. Amber, I believe, has already sent out a flyer. If not, it will be sent out today. And we'll continue to send it out. We're gonna have a big box in the lobby. Everybody can bring whatever you want, just drop it off. You can come after hours and drop it off. Everybody has a code to the door. And then we will take it all down after the 18th, because we're accepting donations till the 18th of December.
Mentions of clothing type things.
Clothing, coats, like literally anything. On the flyer that Amber will be sending out, it will have a link to the road home. So you can go on their webpage and you can see suggestions, you can see what they do and who they help. Okay, anybody have any questions?
Well, I have a couple of bags right now I was gonna drop off. Should I go ahead and drop them off?
You can bring them here.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a big bag too. So, yeah, we're starting it today. So if you have anything, we're gonna be putting the box together today or tomorrow. If you have anything today or you bring it in, we don't have the box yet, just leave it in the lobby. We'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's so much easier than going down there and donating
It
personally.
is,
Because
yeah.
I've done that so many times and yeah, this is easier.
It's much easier than taking it in, so. Okay, anybody have any questions on it? You can always call me, you can talk to Amber and we'll help you out, okay?
Okay, so, we're gonna start off with going over the commissions again. Okay, yeah, so with the commissions, first off, I'm gonna start, are there any questions with anyone on the commissions on the real estate purchase contract? To start off with, there's a few things that we'll adjust, but any concerns, anything that's popped up for you guys? Okay, so I'm gonna pull this up real quick, and I'll share my screen with you again. So this is the real estate purchase contract, so again, the changes. Okay. So in section 4.3E is what the changes took place, so. Zoom that in. Okay, so 4.3E. This is where the commission is. So again, just want to reiterate that you're not putting a total percentage on your ERS, exclusive right to sell this agreement. They are two separate, prices. What do they want to offer? So on your purchase, real estate purchase contract, all you're doing is you're going to put the percentage or the dollar amount, and that's the compensation that you will be receiving, okay? We talked about there's other forms you can use, but we decided this is gonna be your cleanest bet to keep yourself out of trouble with getting your commission. Just put it on the rep sheet, it's clear, it's concise, it's in place. So now if we go to the exclusive right to sell listing agreement, I wanted to review something for you guys, so. All right, so. All right, so here is what we're talking about. Here's the authorization. Now, some questions that have come up are, what if your client doesn't want to authorize you to market any percentage per sell? They say 0, right? Okay, how does that affect you? What can you not do? That they say, I don't want to market that I'm offering compensation.
Okay, so wait, what document is this now?
This is exclusive right to sell listing agreement.
Okay, all right.
So you're listing the property, they say, yes, I'll give you, we'll say 3%. Down here, they're saying, I don't wanna offer compensation, I don't want you to market compensation.
So there's a difference between market and offer.
Okay, so what is that difference?
Well, if you put it in the rep, see, they're offering it if they accept it.
Okay,
If it's not on the exclusive right to sell, they're not marketing what they're willing to pay.
okay, so if an agent calls in and says, hey, what are you offering for compensation?
This is the buyer's agent that's coming.
Yeah, buyer's agent calls and I say, hey, what are you offering for compensation? Your client said 0. Hey, what do you offer for compensation? Can you say
No, you just say 0.
0? Okay, well, what would they be willing to offer if we asked for it?
Good question.
Okay.
Based on the discussion you had with your seller, I guess.
Okay, so you can't disclose it. So this is where we're starting to see a couple of issues. If your client says, I don't want you to offer anything, you say, hey, you have to just ask and I'll present it and they'll have to decide whether they want to or not. You cannot disclose it. They say 0. If you tell them they might be willing to do 2%, you are breaching your fiduciary responsibilities, okay? So this has come up a couple of times. You want to be very careful in having that discussion with potential buyer's agents.
But if they put 0 in there, you're allowed to say 0, right?
You can, yeah, that's what you're supposed to. Oh, they only disclose 0%, so if you wanted to ask for something, I can only present that to them and see what they say.
I've
Go ahead,
had a
Karen.
couple of agents, listing agents, when I've asked the question, what are they offering, they said, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, I'll just put 3% in the rep sheet.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean you can't ask for it. Now, I would still ask, but just for your protections, make sure that you're not divulging any information that's not been authorized for you to divulge. So,
Let's take it a step further. What if the seller says, I don't want to pay the buyer's commission at all, period? Now, where does that put the buyers? The buyer's agent?
You can go with your broker agreement.
Does that mean that the buyer's going to have to pay his agent out of his pocket then?
yeah, that would compensate. So I need to make sure that your clients understand that, so that you explain, look, they're willing to offer compensation. You may wanna look at another property unless you feel comfortable with paying for it, because I think we can get a deal.
I run into a few situations when the listing agent says it's negotiable.
Okay,
So when I ask percentages, negotiable.
it's negotiable, yeah. It is. All things are negotiable, that's what we're doing here as agents, right? Trying to negotiate that in there, okay?
So what you're saying then is if you put 0 in there and the seller sticks to it, then the buyer could probably move on to another property and not consider yours, is what you're saying.
Right, and you want to be able to have a discussion with your sellers, like, yes, I can do this, but just so you know. I can't say, well, maybe we can work something out.
Yeah.
I may chase people away because I'm going to honor our agreement. So if you put 0, I will honor that, but we may lose out on opportunities. So you may want to disclose that, but so. Any questions on the exclusive right to sell listing agreement in this section?
You have,
Okay. Ref C, I have 2.5 listed as seller's contribution to commission. Should I change my buyer broker to match because it now says 3%? So technically you should have an addendum that would match that commission amount. So this is actually great. I'm gonna go into this next question. So with the buyer broker agreement, let me zoom back out.
But
Okay,
it's less, not more, right?
I hate the word depends, but so a little bit more. Okay, all right, so an agent reached out and said, hey, my clients only wanted to start off with 1.5% commission for our buyer broker agreement. Because they said that's all that they'd be willing to pay. Now, I put an offer on a property and I asked what they're offering 3%. What happens there?
Go back to the buyer.
buyer has to pay 3%.
Buyer has to agree.
Okay, so now you're in a predicament, okay, Because you've agreed to a 1.5% for your services. Now, remember we said, depends if you were in our last sales meeting, we said, yes, you can have an increase depending on if you are changing the services and it's justifiable. So if you have 1.5% in here and they're offering 3%, you can't increase this without a reasonable cost. Just because they're offering more is not a reasonable cost. You need to make sure you're putting your compensation, the appropriate amount of compensation in here, because he's gonna miss out on that extra fee. So put down what you're gonna charge, not, hey, I'm gonna put this and then later I'm gonna increase it later. That is against the rules. They changed the NAR rules, you cannot do that. So make sure as you're going through, you are getting what you plan to get paid for. Your
So what are
compensation.
some examples of reasonable?
So that's not a set, I wish it was just
Yeah,
super
just
easy.
to
It's
decide
really
that.
muddy.
Yeah.
It's really muddy.
It is.
It is.
So, some examples, maybe, I mean, we haven't gone through litigations yet and see what's approved and not approved, what the courts allow. But you're probably looking at something along the lines of, hey, I've shown over 100 homes for you. And I'm spending a lot of money. I do need to have a higher compensation. Something measurable that would show it. As long as you feel comfortable. I wish it was a black and white type of thing, but it's really not. But let's see here,
That's why it's better to put a higher amount and do an addendum that decreases it once you've agreed to what the seller's gonna pay, as opposed to trying to justify an increase on your buyer broker.
Agreed, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Just start high, you can come down, because trying to go back up, it's just, for one thing, you're not supposed to. For another thing, we really don't know yet what's gonna be okay and not okay.
Which is,
okay, so we have a question from Terry. I put NA in that section. You cannot do that. It has to be specific.
You also can't work up to.
Yes, so
Correct.
you have to have an exact amount of what you're charging. There can't be any ambiguity. The NA, I've seen some brokers talk about that. You can't do that. You can't put to be determined or NA or we'll see how I feel that day or whatever it is. It has to be specific. So you were cutting out, so I think you said I need to do an addendum to the BBA. If I do, would that make my buyer pay that 25%? So now if you're reducing your addendum to the buyer broker agreement, then they're not paying that. I guess the question, Sherry, is, are you trying to say there's a 0.5% difference and I want to receive that from the buyer?
she said, if I do not. Not if I.
So if I do not, would that make my buyer pay? They would be responsible to pay for that. Now, whether you charge it, that's a different story. Tyler can put it out, but just to keep everything crystal clear, you should have addenda attached, specifying what exactly the commission is.
I think that's, these new rules, that's the part that's the stickiest to me, because I wanna say, okay, I charge 3%. And I'm telling them, like we talked about, I'm not gonna stand in the way of you getting how much, as long as if they offer 2.5%, I'm gonna be fine with that. But we've been taught that doesn't matter what you say, it has to be in writing. And so I haven't run into that yet, but I can see somebody saying, well, let's put that in writing, because I don't wanna be liable to pay that.
Yeah, and you can do an addendum, but the thing you have to look at is, what does that mean? Because you have to be careful too, you can't just say, hey, if they're offering this percentage, I'll take this percentage. If they're offering more, I'll take more. It has to be clarified. You can't just say, well, it depends on whatever they're offering. Your compensation is set, and they need to know the consequences too, like, hey, if you choose to go with a property that's not going to offer compensation, then you're responsible. Now, there's plenty of properties out there that are gonna offer compensation, so
Okay.
what I would do as negotiations, I would say, okay, if you're trying to buy a property and they're unwilling to pay commission, do you think you're gonna get a good deal on that property anyways? They're gonna be a stickler on every single aspect. If you're asking for repair, they're gonna say no. If they're asking for this, they're gonna say no. You might as well go and look at a different property. It's gonna be a better deal for you. So that's one thing you can help add to that. Go
Well,
ahead.
that kind of puts us, I mean, this whole thing there are questions about whether it's doing any good for the buyers or not.
Right,
But it kind of puts you in a position where you actually are helping them base a decision on the commission, which is worse than the way it used to be. You know, if you say that, you may want to look at another property because they're not paying this, that's. Can you even do a clause in there? It sounds like you probably can, but on an addendum that says with your buyer broker agreement, that it's 3%. But if the seller's not willing to pay, I'm willing to adjust down to this limit or something.
yeah, you can't
Can you get
lower,
away with that?
you can't lower
You
your.
can state that on your agreement upfront.
Right, and then it's clear to them and you're not like, go ahead.
So you can't go up.
No, but okay, because that would have been my standard addendum
Mhm.
anyway, but.
But everything does need to be brought through the broker and verified on language, because what you're gonna see is people start putting in these huge, long paragraphs. And then we're just like, well, that one affects that one, which affects this one, and then it creates this whole legal aspect, then you can potentially get sued, have E and O claims.
Okay,
But, let's see right here, so can you give an example of how an addendum to the buyer broker should read? If your listing comp was 3%, but you're under contract at 2.5? Can you make it? Okay, so you're saying you're listing, you're offering 3%, but they ask for 2.5? You don't need to make any changes there. So if you're the listing agent and your sellers say, hey, we'll offer 3%, the buyer comes in and gives you 2.5%, you just saved your sellers 0.5%. That actually just happened to me recently. I negotiated, and it says negotiated up to 3%. That's what the contract says. So the exclusive right to sell listing agreement will say you can negotiate up to 3% if that's what you're offering. So that's what they said, but I was able to negotiate it down a little bit.
Question.
Yes,
Earlier, you had a scenario where it said, where the buyer's agent was calling the seller and saying, okay, inquiring about the commission then.
Mhm.
In the case of a seller saying, receiving multiple offers, and a seller asks the buyer, what is your state of commission?
Okay, so
And have that influence the seller as to which one he might.
let's go through the scenario again. So you're representing the seller. All right, okay, continue on.
Okay, so the seller receives multiple offers.
Okay, so we have multiple offers on the table, okay?
Now the question comes up for the seller. What's the commission that the two buyers are asking for?
Mhm.
And having that decision as to who he's gonna pick based on the commission.
That will definitely be input in
Yeah.
negotiations, yes.
So that means, now we're reversing it. Now we're saying that the seller is now asking the buyers, what is your commission? You know, what are you in the contract for?
But are they asking the
Well, it's in
buyers
the
or is it just on
Right.
the
They write it in the offer, so it's in
It's
the
on the
receipt.
receipt.
I have multiple offers on one of mine, and my seller is like, I don't want you to say what I'm willing to pay, I want to see the offers. I want to see the offers, because the offers that we're getting are asking for closing costs.
Yeah.
Some of them have been a lower price. And so he's taking all numbers into consideration.
Right.
The offers have it right on there. Okay, well, this one's asking for 3%. This one will go down to 2%. So, you know, that he is thinking about that. He's like, okay, this is the number they're offering, this is the closing costs I want, this is the commission that I would have to pay. So all of that is factoring in.
Okay, and you're saying, the point is that you're saying that's all revealed in the offers that are.
It's in the offers, because it's written on the rec sheet
Yeah, yeah.
in 4.3.
But I think another question you're asking is that you didn't ask is, can a seller ask to see a copy of the buyer broker agreement?
They can ask. Do you have to give it to them?
No.
No. So this is actually, we were at the state had their convention for education. And the state was like, you should provide this. And we were like, no, you shouldn't. So they're like, well, why wouldn't you? We're like, well, because it's nothing to do with that. So there's still some, you know, ambiguity in the industry. People are trying to understand. They're still trying to get through all these things. But the biggest thing is, what I would say is, if you have an agreement, you just tell your clients and say, hey, look, with each property, you know, we're looking at, we can negotiate. And if they're unwilling to negotiate at all, they're trying to negotiate against you. There's other properties that are gonna be more willing to negotiate. It's not just one person out there. That's what I would tell them, say, we're here to get you the best deal, but everything's included. Now, one of the things you wanna look at is, okay, your addenda need to be very clear and concise. You need to run it through your broker. Okay, remember, you're not attorneys. So anything past the clarifying certain sections of dates and everything else, then you are going outside of your scope. So if you're writing up, this is what I'm gonna do for my my addendum with my clients, it needs to be ran through your broker. Or if you got an attorney, you can have your attorney draft it up and then send in for approval. But you can't just be changing the forms just willy-nilly. The easiest thing for you to do, just explain to your clients why you're worth what you're worth and say, hey, I'm gonna negotiate. All these sellers are gonna have buyers representing them in most cases. And it's helpful for the buyer to be represented because it limits the potential for litigation. So on my listing, actually, I had someone come in and say, hey, I don't have an agent, so I'm gonna represent myself. I said, well, you might as well get one because it's not gonna benefit you in any way. Because it's gonna look like, hey, you don't have someone to represent you, which means who's gonna do your paperwork? Are you gonna be on time? Are they gonna try to get me to do paperwork and then am I gonna get in trouble because I gave them paperwork and I had, them thinking that I represent them too? All those things. So being unrepresented does not benefit. And so if you help your sellers know that too, and say, hey, you're gonna get buyers coming here anyways, if they're not represented, are gonna be asking for commission. Because they think, I don't have an agent, I'm gonna try to reduce that down, it does no good. And then they're on time, and then, you may get delays, maybe they put a lien because they thought one thing on the property and you thought something else, and now you have to go through mediation, all those things, so. Again, you just wanna be clear and concise, make sure your clients do know your worth, your value. So, any other questions on that before we move on?
I have one.
Yes.
So if you're recommending that we put the commission in the REPSI, what other new forms are you suggesting we just not even worry about?
So the brokerage payment,
Brokerage payment addendum.
so yeah, it's a brokerage payment, a compensation agreement, they changed the name now. So that one, I would just steer clear. Now, you can use that, but what you're doing is you're saying, hey, you guys are gonna agree to a compensation and I'll agree to a compensation before we even place an offer, okay? Now, a lot of people aren't even gonna entertain that, I wouldn't. I wanna see the offer first before I know what we're agreeing to in compensation. So, and the other thing too is, it says in addition to, so on the contract, if you have that brokerage payment, compensation payment agreement, then if you do something on the Rep C as well, that's actually in addition to. So now you're creating, this confusion. I would say, keep it clean, keep it crisp, get this done on the Rep C. Now, if you can, and someone's willing to sign the compensation prior, say, what are they offering? And they will disclose it. Yeah, they'll give you a 3, or maybe they'll say 3.5 if you close before November, end of November. Then you say, okay, let's get that agreement in place. Now, you get that in place and then you go ahead, and now you place the offer. Now you don't have to worry about the offer being anything to do with the commission at all.
So you just leave that blank?
You just put 0.
Did you? Well, then what?
It's an addition.
The other agreement.
It's addition to. So, and you can leave a blank too, blank means the same thing as 0. So
I hate blank comment.
I know, so, but those are the things.
Sorry, is that an addition to the contract, to the REPSI?
Yeah, so the broker's payment agreement is a separate document. But in the Rep C, it says anything in this section is in addition to anything else that's been offered, agreed to prior. So you're adding on to that. So let's just say, maybe you already had an agreement for 2%, but you guys came back and said, you know what? Your client says, I don't wanna pay you out of pocket, let's negotiate the extra 1% if you had a 3% agreement. So then they go and put 1% on the Rep C, that takes you to 3%. But that gets kind of confusing. So
Does the seller sign that one too then? The seller?
So
It's
let me pull it up for you guys, so you guys can take a look at this.
Seller acknowledges it, yeah.
They
And
would
the
have to
buyer.
sign it, right?
and the
The
buyer.
compensation agreement, buyer, or.
So that's only, Josh, when before putting a contract, before submitting an offer.
This one,
The one that,
this is the brokerage, payment, compensation agreement. So if you look here, compensation, so this agreement between the seller's brokerage and the buyer's brokerage authorizes the escrow closing off the disbursement and payment of compensation directly to the buyer's brokerage as follows. Okay. And I screwed up.
I think this document creates a can of worms. That's just my opinion.
It does create some worms there, okay. Let's see, where was I?
Because it's in addition to whatever you write on the website.
And they've even said that they're not liking the wording on this, and so, but right here, so previous, provisions of buyer's broker agreement, so buyer's brokerage has a written buyer broker agreement, obligates buyer to compensate buyer's brokerage. Buyer's brokerage agree that the buyer's obligation may be satisfied by a third party, including the seller's brokerage. Buyer's brokerage may not accept compensation from any source that is greater than the buyer's obligation under the buyer broker agreement. So again, they're restipulating this in multiple locations. So back to what you were saying. So do you put this in before or after? You could have this afterwards. You can't have it before. Again, you want to think about this is does the other agent understand this? Does the seller understand it? Does your buyer understand it? Does title understand it? Are they gonna start getting confused with all the different documents? And you get to the closing date and then all of a sudden, wait, why did my compensation this? It should have been this. So it creates confusion.
Well, and then it brings up the question, let's say on the exclusive right to sell listing agreement, you put 3% to the seller's brokerage. And you put 2% to the buyer's brokerage.
Mhm.
And then you add this addendum representing the buyer that says 2% more. Does that mean the seller's agent's only getting 2% or 3%?
Okay, so
Where are they
this,
gonna get that other percent from?
so this is no longer, so this used to be an addendum. This is no longer an addendum.
Right,
So it's just like an escrow instructions, pretty much.
okay.
Okay, so this is escrow instructions specifically for compensation, if you kind of think of it that way.
That kind of takes the place of the old one that wasn't negotiated in the rep sheet.
Correct.
And does the seller sign that?
Yeah, so on this agreement, so if you go down,
That's fine, the other one too, though.
so right here, you have the name. Okay, so right here, you can see signature buyer, you have the authorized buyer's agent or broker and authorized seller's agent or broker. So everyone has to sign on this one. Versus the Rep C, just the seller and buyer sign. Okay?
example, can I give an example?
Yeah.
I wanna understand it,
Yeah.
okay. So let's say I have my client sign a buyer agreement, buyer broker agreement for 3%.
Okay?
Then I submit an offer, and because it might be multiple offers, whatever, for whatever reason, I spoke to the agent and they only wanna give 2.5, or they counter 2.5.
Yeah.
I put 3%, they counter, yes, compensation 2.5. Then my client knows that they have to do the other 0.5 because of the, right, because of
Correct.
the 3% that I had.
Mhm.
That's when this comes, I can give this document that my client is paying me the other.
No. You don't have to have any additional documentation for the difference. They've already agreed to that in your buyer broker agreement.
And so they pay it in cash at the closing?
Yeah, so they would come to closing with whatever that their down payment plus their fees, for that would be included in that. So their cash to close would be including to what they need to bring to cover in that compensation.
I see, so then title doesn't need to have, if title is seeing 2.5 on the rep C,
Mhm.
but 3% on my buyer agreement, when they do the documents at the end and the numbers, they're gonna put,
Cash
and
to
the bank needs to know that, the bank needs to know that the client is also paying me that remaining?
So it's cash to close. The bank is not part of them qualifying. But your buyer should be aware and make sure that they
That
have
they
the
know that they have
funds.
to pay.
Because if they don't have the funds, now again, if you want to say, well, I'm gonna just waive that, then just do an addendum saying 2.5. I'm gonna reduce my commission to 2.5 because I'm gonna give this to you. Make sure you give me really good, come to my trunk or treat party next year with candy, so I don't know, whatever you want to do.
This document is only if I go back, let's say after the inspection, whatever, and then we realize that I'm trying to ask for more closing costs and my commission. That comes out when I want the seller to pay me that other 5.5.
So this document is specifically for when, let's see, pull it back up.
This is the broker document, remember?
Yeah, the broker's payment difference. So anyways, technical difficulties, but why this document is to be clarifying the commission structure before or during. Or you can use the Rep C to clarify the compensation. So nothing to do with your buyer broker agreement. This is between the brokerages of the contract, okay? Now, I would say do one or the other. Don't start mixing the two. You can, but it's gonna confuse you and everybody else involved. So
Okay.
I would just stick to just Rep C is gonna be the number one option, I would say. Keeps it clean.
And if it's put in the Rep C and you're gonna counter that, you can just counter it
Without this, okay.
with an addendum, you don't need to use this.
Got it.
And as you guys are aware, sometimes getting hold of some brokers is near impossible. So maybe the buyer and the seller sign and you sign as the buyer's agent, but then the seller's broker is often Olaf and is not gonna answer anything. And then a few days later, they decide not to move forward with it because another offer came in. So you can see how that can be kind of difficult when you're having multiple people acknowledge things. I would just stick to the Rep C. One person signs, the other person signs, it's done. Now you're executed. Okay, we got a couple questions. So I would like to re-ask my question concerning section 2.2 of the listing agreement. My seller has indicated that they want to not offer an upfront commission in the amount of the listing agreement. However, is open to paying commission to the buyer's agent, but wants to review any request for commission in 4.3E of the Rep C. So I placed NA in the boxes for 2.2 of the listing agreement. Is this, okay, is this wrong? So I think I know what you're trying to do here. You would want an addendum addressing that item right there. So you're saying what specifically your seller is authorizing you to do. So you say, seller authorizes agent to negotiate to such and such. The problem here is you put NA, there's no restriction. You could offer 10%. So you need to be clear. It's either 0 or it's a specific number. And if there's any criteria for which your seller wants to add, that would mean an addendum to the exclusive right to sell listing agreement. So, for example, they say, hey, if someone comes in with an asking price and they will close before this date, I'm willing to offer 3%. Other than that, I only want you negotiating to 2%. You can put that into an addendum to your exclusive right to sell listing agreement, and you can abide by that. Okay, well, what are you offering? Are you offering this and this? Okay, if you offer that in your offer, then my client said that they'd be willing to do 3%. You're covered. But that would be an addendum to that. Okay? So hopefully that answers your question, Terry. So Denise McCall, so we don't need to use this broker's agreement compensation. Yeah, the brokerage compensation agreement, you don't have to use that. It's another option they gave is in the escrow instructions, basically. I would not suggest use it. I would just use the Rep C. It already stipulates what they are offering. Now, you still need your buyer broker agreement, okay? Sometimes people are confusing that. You have to have a buyer broker agreement before you show, unless you have a limited showing agreement. So we are gonna move on to the next thing because we're running out of time. These are all great questions though. Okay, so transaction coordination. And who uses the transaction coordinator? Okay, who wants to use the transaction coordinator? Okay, so this is, we're gonna address the usage of the transaction coordinator, so. Okay, so here's some criteria.
I might have to hit the button on that.
Oh. Great. All right, you guys seen that? Okay. So can you use an unlicensed transaction coordinator? First question.
Yes.
Yes. Can an unlicensed transaction coordinator figure out what to write up on an addendum and send it for you?
No.
No, okay. If you have an unlicensed, transaction, well, if your transaction coordinator is licensed with another brokerage, can you use that transaction coordinator?
Yeah, right.
Would you want to?
Maybe.
Yes.
No?
Yes, no, yes. Okay, I'm gonna stay on that for a second, so, you can, if both the municipal brokers authorize it. So yes, you can, but every time you go under contract, you're gonna have permission from both brokers, say, hey, we're gonna authorize so-and-so to manage this. So the reason why is if you have a licensed realtor, then when does it become implied agency? So this is where it has to be clarified that, hey, there's only certain circumstances that they're doing this, both brokerages do allow for that. Now, if it's within your own brokerage, then you're perfectly fine. Now, one of the benefits of using a non-licensed transaction coordinator is that they don't have to worry about any of those operational pieces. So if you actually work with someone who used to be an agent and is inactive, that actually might clear up a lot of these potential issues of implied influence because they're no longer a licensed agent. They're just practicing, their transaction coordination. So we're gonna go over just a few items here with this. So here's a few things. So this is what they can do. So obtain the permission of a licensed principal broker before employing the individual. So your broker does need to approve who you're using prior to it. Supervise the assistant to ensure that the duties of the unlicensed assistant are limited to those that do not require real estate license, including the following. So if you have a non-licensed individual, then performing clerical duties, including making appointments for prospects to meet with real estate licensees, but only if the contact is initiated by the prospect and not the unlicensed assistant. So we're talking about assistants and transaction coordinators, so there's a few different pieces here. At an open house, distributing pre-printed literature written by licensee, where the licensee is present and the unlicensed person provides no additional information. So we actually see this sometimes. You can't send your assistant to an open house, even if you prepared everything else. They can be there if you are there as well. They cannot, that's an act of an agent that's doing an open house. So we're gonna transition just a little bit to open houses. Can you hold an open house for another agent at another brokerage?
Yes.
With permission?
Okay, technically with permission, yes, but we're dealing with a lot of implied agency. Okay, first off, it's not you're listing, so you have to get permission from the other brokerage and the other seller in writing, and permission from your broker as well. Also, if you're doing an open house and people are showing up to that house and you're not the representative for the house, are you doing limited showing agreements with each individual coming to that open house? So there's a lot of potential conflicts there. Now, with your own brokerage, you are able to do any open house at any point in time. That also takes us to doing so if you have a buyer broker agreement and you need somebody else to fill in to show a property, you're covered. So if you have another Realtypath agent, they can go and show that property for you, no questions asked. Because it's the brokerage who has the agreement with them. Now, if you have a limited showing agreement with that prospective buyer, let's say, hey, I'm gonna do these 5 houses. But on this day, actually it's my anniversary, so I can't do that. I'm gonna have so-and-so fill in for me. They would also need a limited showing agreement to fill in for you on that. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of little changes that are going on. If you have any doubts, just reach out. So
Where's that document? I bought a copy.
of this one, it's on the Realtypath library. You can go in to see the documents and just just put coordination. This one will pop up. I know we're running out of time, but I also wanted to go over SOI. Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, so what if you have someone who
But if you have a seller who wants to have two realtors represent them, if they're not in the same brokerage, are we allowed to do that?
You can have more than one person represent you from two separate brokerages, yes.
Yeah, okay, so like, I know somebody who, they're just about to put their estate on, up,
Mhm.
and they have a particular agent they want to use, and they're talking about having me also, and I said, I want to check on that.
Yes, if it's not. So do you have a variable list? I guess the question would be. So you're representing the seller then? Okay. This is gonna be a little more longer of a discussion, so we can talk afterwards, but there are limitations you can't put onto an agreement. Saying, hey, I'm gonna allow more than one company, it wouldn't be an exclusive agreement. So if they already have an exclusive agreement, then no, you wouldn't be able to. Because you're giving the sole responsibility for that. Now, for a buyer, you can have multiple people showing different properties and all that stuff as well. But one of that, just talking about sphere of influence. Using CRMs is a great way to get in front of your clientele. Again, we do have pro agent websites. It is a free website we pay for our agents to have with a basic CRM system. We also pay down for KD Core. This is a very robust CRM system. Marketing, Facebook, Instagram, creates websites, QR codes, all that stuff. It's a reduced price for $59 a month. That normally costs $700 a month. So if you have any interest in CRMs, we have both options. So if you're like, hey, I want to just blow us out of the market, we have KB Core. If you're just saying, hey, I just want to have a basic system, we have project websites, both of them we discount tremendously for you. But I noticed when we had some of the trunk or treat events, getting people to show up. A lot of times people say, hey, I'm having this party, if you want to attend, please show up, and it'd be fun to see, right? But if you send someone that notice, like, hey, if you can show up, that'd be great. What is the likelihood that they will show up? Very low. You have to create a sense of urgency. So if I were to say, hey, Melissa, I just put together this amazing trunk or treat party, and I've already paid for food, and we got things decorated, and I just want to make sure I have enough food for everybody. Can I count on you to attend? What does that create?
Urgency.
It creates urgency and
Commitment.
commitment.
Is that a commitment? That's right.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's the same thing like exercising. You know what? I don't really feel like exercising today. I'm just not gonna go. It's the same thing with these events. If you get people to commit, they will show up. You as an agent, you have to create the excitement, but also make sure that they follow through. So when you reach out to SY, give them opportunities to come out, have fun with it. They will be glad they went out, but if you wait to the moment of, anything will come and interfere with their ability to show up. So think about how you're messaging people. Hey, if you can, you're already giving them a way out. Don't give if, just say, I'm excited to see you at our event. Can you please confirm, because I'm buying food, I don't want to go to waste. Wholly different options. So they're gonna get a stronger likelihood for someone to show up. So that takes us back down to listing the highlights. So